Thank y'all. Thank you very much. It's great for me to have the opportunity to be here with you today in this great crowd just 5 days before Election Day. Not that I'm keeping count or anything. As I've traveled around the state over the last 4 years, I've heard repeatedly from my constituents that our number one priority must be job creation, bringing better and higher paying jobs to our state. I will tell you that we have a political philosophy. It's a philosophy shared by the governor and the Speaker of the House, and that political philosophy goes something like this. Government does not create jobs. Government's role is to create an environment which encourages those of you in the private sector to invest capital and create jobs. And so every single bill that's come before my desk in the last 4 years, and there's been over 12,000 bills filed in the Mississippi legislature in the last 4 years, every single one of them, that's the question I ask. If we pass this legislation, is it going to help us create that environment which encourages private sector job growth? If the answer to that question is yes, well, we do everything we can to make that bill become the law of the land in our state. When we think about creating that environment, it really consists of three things, three primary components. Number one, if we're going to see long-term economic prosperity, we must have a fiscally responsible government. That's why I'm proud to tell you that even though we inherited a budget that spent $460 million in one-time money on recurring expenses, that today Mississippi has a truly balanced budget that only spends recurring revenue for recurring expenditures. Today, Mississippi has a rainy day fund that is filled to its statutory maximum of 7.5% of our annual operating budget. Today, Mississippi, or more correctly, you, the taxpayers, have less debt on the books today than you had 4 years ago. So I'm happy to tell you that today, Mississippi is in better fiscal shape than it's been in years and years and years, and that is because of good, strong conservative leadership in your state capital. The second component to creating that environment which encourages private sector job growth is we must have a tax code that is fair, one that is simple, and one that encourages economic development, not one that discourages it. And that's why your legislature in the last 4 years has done everything we could to encourage capital investment in our state. Everything from lowering the unemployment tax on employers across our state to eliminating the inventory tax, which once fully implemented will be a $150 million tax cut for small businesses across our state. That's $150 million that can either be reinvested in plant and equipment, it can be invested in your employees, or it can be utilized to hire new employees, all three of which are good for long-term economic growth in our state. The third thing that we must do if we're going to see long-term economic prosperity is we must improve the educational attainment level of our citizens. That's why over the last 4 years under our leadership, we've invested in our priority of public education. In the last 4 years, we've increased funding for public ed every single year. This year, we'll spend $400 million more on public education than was spent 4 years ago when the other guys were in charge. This year, we'll spend $285 million more on K-12 education. We'll spend over $120 million more on higher education. This year, we'll spend more money on K-12 than's ever been spent in the history of our state. This year, we'll spend more money on our community colleges than has ever been spent in the history of our state. This year, we'll spend more on our institutions of higher learning than has ever been spent in the history of our state. You see, under Republican leadership, we have made investing in public education a priority. But we also believe that you cannot just simply spend more money and guarantee different results. That's why we've not only invested in public education, we have reformed our public educational system, because we believe that we need to get more money in the classroom and less money in district offices. We need more money in instruction and less money in administration. That's why we've done things like school district consolidation. That's why we've passed legislation like the third grade gate, ensuring that every kid that goes on to the fourth grade can read at a basic level, which gives those kids a better opportunity for success when they're in the fourth and fifth grade, which leads to the fact that they're more likely to not drop out when they're in the seventh, eighth, and ninth grade. That's why we've worked to improve school choice in our state. All of our reforms have had one simple theme. It's really, really simple. You see, we believe it should not matter what a kid's zip code is, nor should it matter what their mom and dad do, or in too many instances don't do for a living. Every kid in our state deserves an opportunity for success. And that's why, as we move into Election Day on Tuesday, it's so vitally important that the people in this room today fully understand and fully appreciate the consequences of changing our state's constitution. You see, when you're in business, numbers matter. When you're operating your business, the bottom line and the top line and how much revenue you have matters. Well, you see, in our business, in the business of passing laws and operating under our Constitution, words matter. And so despite the millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that's been spent misleading our voters in Mississippi by outside groups in Washington, D.C. and Atlanta, Georgia, words actually matter. The proponents of 42 say it's about funding our schools. I urge you to go look at the changes they want to make in Section 201 of our Constitution and see if the word funding is anywhere to be found. It's not. They say it's about fully funding MAEP. So I ask you to go and look at the proposed changes to Section 201 of our Constitution and show me where it says the words MAEP. It does not. And so, if you think that we ought to operate government and we ought to send not only education funding decisions, but also education policy decisions to one judge in Hinds County, then perhaps you should be for amending our Constitution. But if you believe that our representative government, if you believe that you, the taxpayers, if you believe that you, the voters, ought to have a say, if you believe that parents and grandparents ought to have a say in their child's education, then you have no choice but to vote against this initiative. I'm very passionate about this issue, as are very many others, because we've worked so hard in the last 4 years to pass good, strong legislation, to get more money in the classroom. And as we saw with the press conference yesterday by the Mississippi Department of Education, our efforts are working. Because of hard work by teachers, because of hard work by our students, Mississippi was ranked yesterday as the only state in the country to see significant improvement in both fourth grade reading and fourth grade math. This isn't what I'm saying. You don't have to believe me. This is what the national folks are saying. And so I urge you to please research over the next 4 days. Research and read what's really going on, because it's extremely important for the future of our kids, and the future of our kids is what's going to lead to whether or not we have long-term economic prosperity. Now I'm going to close by introducing someone who's really, really important to my ability to get reelected. Ely, will you please stand up? You know, in every family, somebody's got to work for a living. Unfortunately for Ely and ours, it's her. And so she didn't get to come to these things all that often because she's in the investment business and the market's open from 8:30 to 3, whether you like it or not. But I'm honored to have her here with me today, and I look forward to walking around saying hello. I'll conclude by asking you one simple question. I want to humbly ask for your support for my reelection next Tuesday, and my commitment to you is I'll continue to work to make Mississippi a better place to raise a family and a better place to invest capital and create jobs. Thank you.